politicians love podiums. I think it makes us feel important. Thank you so much, May. I appreciate the introduction. And I just want to acknowledge Mr. Zwane. Thank you for the gracious invitation, Ms. Shalim and Mr. Lerato, whom we had a wonderful session yesterday. And Dr. Biko online, we're honored to be sharing this platform with you. And of course, the program director has said it very well. We honor the legacy that you are carrying so, with honor, with dignity, and the light that you shine in all of us. And if not for the Black consciousness, we would not be confident within ourselves as Black people that we can actually lead, we can do something. And even the move to release Nelson Mandela, it was sparked by the Black consciousness movement and the UDF that came together. And there's a huge role that we have not truly celebrated that Dr. Steve Biko has played in this country. So we honor your presence and we honor his legacy. Thank you. And Mayor representing Ms. Tessa, thank you so much. Let me not waste time, and I think there are three organizations that I understand they are represented here: the African Charter on Democracy, Election and Governance, African Governance Architecture, and the Charter Project Africa. And if there are people that are representing those organizations, I also would like to acknowledge you. You see, Tina, we are from government. I'm actually from the legislature as a speaker, right? So I have to follow protocol. Unlike you, I cannot say protocol observed because I am a carrier of protocol. If I take shortcuts, it will not be proper, and it will not, when I get back to the office, they can actually find me and boom me nose. So I have to follow the protocol of greetings. I apologize if it took a bit of time. You know, thinking about this topic, and I apologize that I could not be here in the morning to truly follow in some of the discussions, because in my office in legislature, one of my key roles and mandates is public participation. And as part of that is civic education, which we are going to be embarking on very soon. And it's important to understand from organizations like yourselves and this sort of forums, you know, what is it that we should be doing in terms of civic education and how we should do it. When I look back, Africa post-colonialism, when we took over and implemented what we call democracy, and with great excitement, we had liberation heroes that came in, want to do elections. Suddenly, each and every one of us have the power to vote in whether it's a mayor or a premier or a president. We went in excitedly from 1950s all the way through to 1994 when we got our own independence. Elected our leaders, hoping for a change in the African state, hoping that the democracy that our forefathers fought so hard for, some died for, some never even lived to see it, young people, old people, etc. Some were exiled, they never saw their parents or siblings once they left the countries. And not just in South Africa, but throughout Africa it was happening at different points in history. They went into this democratic era with excitement. But when we look back in history in Africa, we can see that the democracy has not truly worked. I believe if we're honest with ourselves, from Cape to Cairo, there's a lot of gaps that this democratic era has not been able to address: administration, governance, corruption, the economy of Africa as a whole. Most African states, they depend and they survive on foreign aid, dilapidation of infrastructure, decay of public services. You know, Africa became a shadow of itself post-colonialism. The French, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the whites, you name them, the British, they left Africa with some form of infrastructure. and with democracy. And in some countries, they even chased them out. They pegged them literally into the sea, left their farms, left their homes, left public infrastructures as was. And we black people took over. We went into their homes, we took over their farms, we went to the public institutions. Hardly 10 years, most of those countries had collapsed. Let us bring it home here. We entered 1994, great excitement with the right to vote. I dare to say hardly 20 years. You can't find a school that is functioning. Hospitals are shadow. You can't even go to public hospitals. We have to depend on private. We're still chasing after the white people. We can't live in our own townships because we never developed them. We never did anything to improve our own lives. We're going to private schools. So what has gone wrong with this democracy? Is it the leadership? One person said, and this is a very good friend of mine, so I'm going to quote him. I don't know whether it's true or not, it's part of debate. Wherever you find black people, democracy does not work. I'll leave it at that. But then you find countries like China, like the UAE, where the Arabs are. That because the Arabs, they don't have democracy. They have one king, they have the system of their traditional leadership, but they have modernized beyond anyone that we can ever think of. They have relaxed some of their human rights laws now as well. They are focused, forward-thinking, even in education of girl child. Youth are doing very well. Now Dubai is one of the shining examples. You go to Qatar, you go to many countries in the UAE. You may not like the traditional way of living, but we always flock there. Whether we want foreign aid, whether we want holiday, whether we want to shop, we are all going to the UAE. So we can argue that perhaps running these democratic institutions was foreign to Africa. We had mastered the liberation struggle, sabotaging government, burning buildings. We had mastered marching and doing, really putting pressure to change government. That we can do very well. Guerrilla warfare, we mastered those things. We know how to do it, and the pressure that we put will break any neck. And we did that. But we never mastered how to live beyond our freedom and independence. And this is why I find this topic that is one very, very important. Because when I looked at Singapore, they went through the same thing. They were also colonized by China and you must read the book From the Third World to First World of Singapore. It tells you how they managed to take that democracy and take this Singapore country that had nothing, absolutely nothing. It was just a village. Today, Singapore is one of the countries that exports, they've got the greatest harbor in the world. Their service industries are booming there. Their world economy, I think their unemployment does not even reach 2 or 3%. But what did Singapore do? They harnessed the power of civic education. And in that book, the president of Singapore talks about how these descendants, the Singaporeans, descendants of these illiterate, landless peasants, that's what he calls them, how they harness the power of education. He says we had to take rural people and create a city out of them, create a modern society out of them. Number one, through civic education, they had to create a social order. Believe me, what you see happening here is not strange. When you see people litter, like they don't understand that there's a wrong and right in drinking and eating something, you put it right where you are, public indecency. Anyone can just stop and wee-wee right in front of you along the highway. You know, you can speed and do whatever you want to do. It's public indecency, is ill-discipline, and it describes the people of Singapore almost now, perhaps 80 years ago, exactly like the picture that I see when I look at the people that live in the city of Johannesburg. And he said these were people that had no sense of moral standards. What is right or wrong to do in a civilized society? In a city where you want to attract foreign investors to come and live with you, the Western world must feel comfortable to live side by side with you. How do you behave as a citizen? And that was through focused civic education. And how did they create that social order? And he says we went as far as putting it in the curriculum, in their education system, was civic education, teaching people basic behaviors. We talk about building this World African city called City of Johannesburg. Powerful city that we have, the biggest economy in Africa. This is the center of gravity of Africa. Everything happens here in the city of Johannesburg. But we'll never achieve this world-class African city, program director, without world-class African citizens. It is the citizens that make the city. And the only way to get citizens that are world-class is civic education. And not the ones of hit and run, or you come every quarter. It's constant teaching, reminding, until it is ingrained and engraved within us to say, this is what a world-class African citizen looks like, behaves like, feels like. And you know, I was amazed when the president of Singapore said we even had to teach them how to be courteous, how to serve, how to smile. And they would have inspectors that will go around in various stores and malls to see if indeed you are serving with a smile, you are courteous. Because it's not engraved in us. We know how you and I serve one another. Just take it at McDonald's. I got you one McDonald's. Do you understand? That's how we, and not a fault of our own. But because it has not been taught over and over again that this is your customer who pays you. This is somebody that you must provide service to with courtesy, etc. We feel we're just doing everybody a favor, even in things that we're supposed to be receiving a reward or compensation from. The second type of civic education that they embarked on was social control, lawlessness. People had completely lost it, as we have done in the city of Johannesburg. How do we obey the law? What is right? What is wrong? People are just doing as they please. In fact, we have moved from extremes where we used to fear the policemen in the age of apartheid. They were demonized, as we called it. Now they're just like, whatever, come on, police. You know, there's no honor, there's no order, there's no respect for authority. And they had to bring back that social control, because if nobody respects the authority that is supposed to enforce bylaws, enforce the laws, that they become, we cannot have a society that abides by the law. And those things, we take it for granted, but it has to be taught. It must be part of what we do. My office should be doing that on a daily basis. But parents at home, at school, those are the things that we should be engraving as part of our civic education. Now, there's a statement that when I was just preparing here, I also kind of thought of, and the contradictions that come with this democracy that we want. Remember, you are now a powerful citizen. You have the voice, you have the rights, you have the vote, you can express yourself however you want to, etc. But where are the limits? where you take responsibility to say, indeed, I can say whatever I want, I can go to the media, but is this going to benefit anyone? Is this actually in order? And we find that our youth, our young people especially, have lost all moral control in the name of democracy. Elders are no longer respected, structures are no longer respected, teachers are no longer respected. It's part of civic education. You can't have a teacher who's afraid to go and teach, who's afraid to discipline a student because uzomgwaza. We just went to a school here in Johannesburg, it's called New Nations. They take street kids, we support them, and they bring them into the school and, give them education, feed them, etc. But I was telling Tatazwane that it's not a school that you want to go and spend a lot of time in and sleep in, etc. Because you get in there, you can just smell drugs. You can just see the kids are high. We launched a STEM program there on Saturday. Half of them were not even with us, present, but you can see they're floating somewhere. Those are the kind of things. The principal himself, you can see, is very careful on what he says and what he doesn't say, because anything can erupt at any moment. And that's the kind of society that we have created out of democracy. And this is what is killing Africa. The Western world has mastered their democracy because this was engraved in them. They lived with it from birth. But us, we need to be taught what is the true meaning of democracy beyond the X. Some of the things that they complained about in the document that I read that came with democracy was, of course, the drugs, crime, lack of respect, loss of social order, especially the young people, prostitution, pornography everywhere, etc. So those are the things that before democracy, our society used to cringe a little bit when you see it. Now it's okay. I know there are rights. I don't want to step on anyone's rights. But to see a prostitute walking with your son, going to buy bread is a normal thing. People that are wearing nothing and, standing there in a public space, you're trying to build a family structure, you're trying to create order, it has become a norm. And in many of these mature democratic places, they've got a space and place for it because they know there are people that perhaps are inclined in that manner, but don't do it in front of our children. We also have a right to build a different society and a different man or woman that we want to raise. But as I conclude, I think the big question that we have is, of course, in this new era of the fourth industrial revolution, we've got different generations, we've got the generation X, now they're saying there's generation Alpha, millennia, I don't know where we are. But these are not the type of people that you are going to reach them in the type of traditional manner that we do our civic education. Yes, we are going to varsities, we're going to go to different TVETs and etc. We hold meetings in a town hall, but I don't expect the generation Alpha to come to a town hall, and come and listen to us talking. No. They need a different way in how we reach them that they can relate to through technology, the smart gadgets, etc. And those are the things that I'm hoping that this forum today will assist us as City of Johannesburg on how to shape and transform how we deliver civic education to our society, so that we don't only reach those that are elderly and all of that still understand coming to a venue for IDP or civic education and they are willing to be bussed and housed, etc. But those that are saying, just give it to me here now, and if you don't give it to me in a TikTok fashion, in 2 seconds, I'm out. How do we then keep them interested, yet understanding the message that we want to get across? And I think for me, that's a big question today. How are we going to partner together to bring the civic education that is so required to build our society, to redress all of these ills that we have just seen? I'm not even going to go into the government part of corruption and leadership, etc. I'm just talking about our citizen behavior and our citizens becoming world-class citizens, understanding their role, their responsibility as part of building this democratic state that must prosper, provide jobs, opportunities for all, attract investors, attract different cosmopolitan nations to come and dwell side by side with us, and in peace and in safety and in security. And on that note, I just want to thank you and look forward to further engagements. Thank you so much. The speaker is well.